Okay, I am live. I think I might be a minute or so early, but that's okay. Whew. Hi. I just ran around the house really quick trying to get everything ready. Is anybody here with me yet? Let's see. All right. Yeah, we got some folks here. Wonderful. All right, great. My name is Kim Moore. I am a hair cutting educator, and I created Head Shape Matters cutting system. And I'm happy to have you here. We're going to today look at the inverted bob and some of the challenges that we have with the inverted bob, and then how we can do something that's pretty simple. And we're going to look at the inverted bob with two different degrees. Because I know for me, behind the chair, it was, you had some that wanted it really stacked to the gods, some that wanted it really low. So how do we adjust that? Because that was a big challenge for me. Like those who wanted the really high stack, how do I get that? So we're going to look at that and just do two things side by side and look at the differences. And also talking about the challenge area that most of us face, which is right back here. If you would, something I always forget to do when I do these is ask people to share it. So if you know anybody that you think would benefit from this, if you would just share it out and let people know we've got this class going on. It's going to be a fun time. Okay. Hey, Julia. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome time. I got lots of stuff to show you, different mannequins. It's going to be very visual and fun. Okay. So go ahead and share that out if you will, whoever's watching. I appreciate that. All right. So what we have here are two different head shapes, and this is what happened to me behind the chair, that I started this whole process and found everything that I found that started Head Shape Matters. All right, so we have a flat head and then a rounded head. And behind the chair one day, I cut two women into an inverted bob, cut them exactly the same, and got two completely different results. And what happened was, one of the ladies, her head was extremely flat, just like this. Looked like a board. So when I got done cutting, it looked like I had not cut anything, which was weird. It looked like a one-length bob. It was so strange, and I didn't know what had happened. But now that I've kind of researched this, and now I completely understand what happened, and I'm going to show you on here what happened to me that day and why her haircut looked like a one length. So on this flat head and on the round head, what I did was I just took a 45-degree angle, put it here, and just drew my line out because my daughter is in cosmetology school right now, and what they're teaching her about building graduation, or to stack the hair, is to cut the hair at 45. So you come here, pull the hair, and cut. That's how we cut an inverted bob, okay? Or graduation. And so that's what she's learning right now. And that's what I learned. And that's what I taught, okay? But just logically, I want us to look at what's going to happen to this, okay? So I went through and I measured how many inches the scalp is, and the same thing here. And actually both of them are 9 inches. So right where I have dots, that's another inch. So there's 9 inches of scalp here and 9 inches of scalp here. I took that 45-degree angle, assuming that we'd start at like about 1 inch long, And I drew that 45 coming out. Let's measure this length right here. So it's 10 plus another 1, so about 11 inches. This one just goes from 10 to 20. Okay. So that's 11 inches long. This head shape is only 9 inches. So when this hair falls, where do you think it's going to fall? So just think about that logically. It's got to travel over around, so that's going to eat up some of our length. So it's going to fall to about a 1 length. And, you know, we look at that and say, how can that be true? You know, but logically it just makes sense. Because if we look at, I'm going to show you a mannequin. Where is that mannequin? Hold on, I've got a mannequin here for us. Oh, she's on the tripod. Okay, so we can see that this mannequin has been cut to 1 length. All right? But if I hold her like this, and we look at this angle, what is that? Okay, what is that cutting angle? So if we take a protractor, we can just put it here, right there, and look and see what angle is that. Okay. It's falling between the 40 and the 50. So it's a 45-degree angle that when it falls into a 0. Okay? So then when we see that and we look at this, then that makes sense, right? Also, something else is going to, that I want to show you. Look how different this is going to be. Because of the head shape, if we started 1 inch out from the hairline and go up at a 45, okay, look at the cutting angle here, or how close that is to the head and what's going to happen in this area as opposed to this. Okay? So these two, once that hair falls, it's going to fall very different. Okay? Now on this head, the 45 is going to look pretty good up through here, right? And here's why it's going to look pretty good, is because the head shape right there. So actually, if we did this, we'd be cutting 90 degrees from head shape in this area. Okay. But it's not until we get up in here we start really increasing the length. And what will happen on a head like that that's more rounded, is something like this. Okay? Where in here it looks pretty good, but then we get this really heavy ledge and it looks 1 length sitting on top. Okay? And again, that's why, because of the length that we're building by coming out at 45 from the floor, we're building all this length. So let's measure the length there. So that's about 8 1/4. Okay, we have 9 inches altogether. So where's this going to fall? It's got to travel around a little bit of a round, so it's going to eat up a little bit of our length. So then it's going to fall right about here really heavy. Okay, so if we look at this mannequin again, we can see that that's exactly what happened. Okay. So it looks pretty good to a point, and then it looks really, really heavy and like a ledge, okay? So this mannequin here was cut at a 45, okay? All right, so that's one thing I wanted to show you about cutting an inverted bob, is that if we just keep traveling up the head with a 45 to the floor, we can run into a lot of really heavy weight lines and ledges. And then it takes us so much time to have to go back and point cut and blend and texturize and all of this stuff. And it just eats into our time behind the chair. I remember a couple of my clients that had super thick hair, and I'm telling you, it would just take me hours to cut their hair to get that stack to look good and to look blended. And, you know, I'd have to, Lisa, if you're watching, I love you, but I would have Lisa come in the day because it would take hours for me to cut her hair to make it look good because of all the weight that I would build. And I didn't understand what was happening, or why, you know, why I had to spend so much time correcting it to make it look good ever. So now I know. So that's why. Once I looked at it logically and just looked at the math of it, it makes sense why, you know? All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way, and then I want to show you another little thing that happens right down here that makes it look so chewy, is what I like to call. Look like a rat's gone in there and chewed all this up a lot of times with our inverted bobs, right? So typically what I would do behind the chair, and I think a lot of people do, is just, you know, basically what we see being done. So we do that as well. Except when we're cutting an inverted bob, we tend to, you know, cut the length that we want at the bottom, and then come in right away and start angling our finger here, right? So right away we start doing that. What happens right down here in this hairline with so many of our clients? All the crazy growth patterns, all the craziness that goes on back there in a hairline. And the minute let's say they come in, they have shoulder length hair, and they decide, okay, I want an inverted bob. And we haven't really seen their hairline in a long time, or they're a new client. And we go in and we cut this off to the length we want it to be. And then we come in and do this, okay? And that's 45 from the floor, but the head shape right here, so that's actually 90 from head shape, okay? So what's going to happen right in here is we're releasing all the weight, and all those growth patterns start kicking in and going everywhere. So let's watch that. Let's see what happens to our bottom line if we do this. Okay. Oops. Okay. So when we come in and we cut that perimeter length to where we want it to be, but then we immediately pick the hair up and cut into it. If the head shape is coming out like this underneath the occipital, and we hold the hair like this, we're cutting that hair at 90 degrees really short, like you saw in the picture that I just drew on the rounded head. And what happens is we just have released all the weight in that area and allowed any growth patterns or cowlicks or anything that's going on in the back to start pushing the hair wherever it wants to go. Okay. And so then what happens is we have to go back in and cut this shorter at the end of the haircut, right? Because there's all these scragglies and all this craziness going on. So instead of cutting it where we wanted it to start, because we've already done that, now after the haircut we have to go back in and cut it shorter, because we released all that weight in there where we have crazy growth patterns. So I'm going to show you just like what I feel like for me has been the easiest way that I have found to do an inverted bob. And, hopefully it'll be easy for you. So I've gone in and cut her perimeter line, in the basic amount of incline that I want, All right. So that's the basic shape that I want. All of this is just cut to one length. So, you can do that. Go ahead and cut everything to one length into the amount of inversion that you want. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the sides. Well, I take that back. I'm going to start in the front. I'm going to get this front hairline out of my way so that I don't end up cutting it as part of my sides. Okay. So I'm just going to come in and clip that out of my way. So I'm going to start on this side from, the center back all the way to the front. And I'm going to cut this side at a 45 degree from the head shape. Okay. Now, something I want to share is we don't need to cut a lot of hair to get a lot of shape. So to show that, what I'm going to do, I just did a webinar and showed this with some layers, but I want to show this with an inverted bob as well. We don't have to cut this whole side of the head. We can leave a nice strong perimeter line and build shape on top of it. So just wanted to show you that. So I'm going to leave quite a bit of hair down in her perimeter density. I think I'll just take okay, so I'll just cut this much. And let's see, I'm going to cut it 45 from head shape and just see how much shape we can build from that. Okay. And I've just brought this on around through the back. Okay. right, so I just dropped about 1 inch of hair down. My perimeter is already cut on a diagonal. So as long as when I lift this up, I cut to my guide that's underneath, and I cut it at a 45-degree elevation from the head shape, that elevation will remain the same all the way down to that perimeter length. So I'm going to start back here. Place my comb here so I can see the head shape. So I know that that's 90 right there, half, and that's 0 from head shape. So 45 is going to be halfway in between the two. Okay, right there. All right. And I'm cutting to my guide, which is that perimeter underneath. So I'm going to come right beside that. Take another section, place my comb. There's 90. There's 90. 45 is halfway in between, right about there. Come right beside that. So I'm just going to work through this and do 45 from head shape all the way around the head, drop the next level, do that same thing, and I'm just going to work, okay? I'm going to drop this down a little. I know that there's some people on here watching that are certified in Head Shape Matters cutting system. So if you want to ask some questions, they may be able to jump on and help you. Okay, so 90, 45. So I just took a piece of the hair that I just cut, and that's going to become my guide. And I'm going to clip the rest of the hair away. Just keeps things clean. And I'm always going to cut this from where it lives. So I'm working around the head and cutting hair where it lives. So that's something else too. Like if the hair falls this way, then my comb needs to be pointing in the direction that it falls in when I'm finding the degree from head shape. Okay. So 90, 45. And just cutting to that diagonal line. $90, $45. Now, it was starting to get too thick, so I put some of that hair away. I would not have been able to see my guide clearly. I'm going to get that out of my way. Place my comb. 90, 45. Down so I can see it better. Okay, so that was cutting at 45 degrees from the head shape. You can see how really low that is. Okay, so there's not a ton of graduation in this at all because 45 falls really low, right? All right, so on this side, I'm going to do 90 from head shape. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get this front out of my way. Clip the hair below it away. Oops. So 90s here. Taking the top of what I just cut, clipping the rest of the hair away. That becomes my guide. Okay, now on the front of this one, I'm going to do a 90. I'm going to leave out enough perimeter density to make sure I continue this line down, and then I'm going to do a 90 here as well. Now on this side I didn't do that because it's such a low degree and that front just blends right in with it. But here I've gone to 90, so I need to continue that on around. Oops. It's going to be my guide for the next section. Okay. Okay, so this side was cut at 90 from head shape. Okay. So let's look at the two. Okay. And then this side was cut 45 from head shape. Okay. All right. So there's all kinds of cutting angles that we can do where We can increase the amount of elevation in the hair and keep the length and keep the density, right? So we can keep stacking this up. We could do 120 degrees and still get elevation in the hair. Okay, so you know, as you can see that this is cut at 90, but it's building graduation. Okay. All right. And it's something, you know, that we can do really quick. If we need to go back in and go shorter back here, of course we can. We can undercut it, take a clipper and just come in, you know, closer and edge this in. But if we have someone that's got craziness in the back, and we need to keep that weight there so it doesn't go every which way, this is just a good way to do it. And then if their head shape is different, like if someone's head is really flat in the back and we want to create roundness, those are the types of things that we talk about in the online training course. So let me just give you a little bit more background on that. I teach a 7-week long online training course for Head Shape Matters. And one of the things we get into is, okay, which, you know, we did a 90 and we did a 45. What combination of cutting angles should I use on someone who's got the flat head like I showed in the beginning? And that's how all of this even started for me, was just I had a client with a really flat head and I couldn't build a round shape on it. So I just started researching, how do I do that? And so I had to play with different combinations of cutting angles on how to build a round on something that's flat. And so like with this, I just kept the same cutting angle all the way, but you can do different combinations of cutting angles on the different levels to build the shapes that you want. And it's not really, you're not building really a round on a flat surface out here. It's not going to be round out here, but once it falls, it will be round. Okay, so those are the types of things that we really dive into and look at in learning this system. And we've got a class starting next Sunday. And so anybody interested, headshapematters.com, and we'll post it in the comments as well, so that, you know, you can check it out and see if that's something you'd be interested in. So I hope you enjoyed today. I did. Thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye. Oh, still here. Let's see, how do I get out of here, guys? Thanks for the love. How are the layers being angled if they're not being over directed? Because I'm cutting them to the perimeter line. And the perimeter line was already cut on an angle. So that became my guide. So when I cut on an angle. Okay, so that's how that happened. So anyway, thanks for joining, guys. See you later. I'll go back and read the comments.